Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now let's start. It's said that family bonds are some of the strongest we have, but what happens when a well-intentioned action threatens to unravel everything? This is the story of how one decision, one conversation, set off a chain of events that left my cousin's wedding in ruins. A day that was supposed to be filled with love and celebration turned into chaos and heartbreak. If you are enjoying the story, then please subscribe to my channel, comment, and share with your friends. Now came back to story. The day started innocently enough. My cousin Sophie had been planning her wedding for over a year. She and her fiancé, Mark, were the picture-perfect couple. Sophie was radiant with happiness, and everyone around her was caught up in the excitement of the upcoming ceremony. I was genuinely thrilled for her. Sophie and I had always been close growing up. We shared secrets, dreams, and countless laughs. But as we grew older, life took us in different directions. Yet, our bond remained strong. It all started at a pre-wedding family gathering at Sophie's parents' house. It was one of those casual evenings meant to relax everyone before the big day. Friends and family mingled, sharing drinks and stories. Mark and Sophie looked inseparable, glowing with anticipation for their future together. As the evening wore on, I found myself in a corner with Mark. We'd always gotten along well, and he was genuinely curious about Sophie's childhood, the person she was before they met. He asked me about funny anecdotes or memorable moments from our shared past. At first, I shared lighthearted tales, how Sophie once accidentally dyed her hair green, trying to go blonde, or how she used to sneak cookies from the jar and blame it on me. We laughed, but then Mark's questions became more pointed. He asked if there were ever any serious relationships before him. I hesitated. Should I tell him the truth or brush it off with a vague answer? In that moment, I didn't see the harm in being honest. Mark was going to be family soon, and he seemed genuinely curious. So I told him about Sophie's past relationship with a man named Daniel. It had been a significant relationship, one that Sophie had never discussed with Mark. What I didn't realize at the time was that this information would ignite a chain reaction I couldn't control. Daniel wasn't just any ex. He was someone Sophie had deeply loved, but their relationship ended under painful circumstances. Sophie had made mistakes in that relationship, ones she'd worked hard to move past. She'd grown, matured, and found a second chance at love with Mark. However, when I mentioned Daniel, Mark's demeanor shifted. He started asking more questions, and I realized too late that I'd said too much. The following day, Sophie called me, her voice trembling. Mark had confronted her about Daniel. He wanted to know why she hadn't told him about her past, why she'd kept secrets from him. Sophie was devastated that her past was now casting a shadow over her future. She felt betrayed, not just by Mark's reaction, but by my decision to share something so personal. I tried to explain that I hadn't meant any harm, but my words felt hollow in the face of her pain. As the days went on, the situation spiraled. Mark began questioning everything about their relationship. Trust, once so solid, now felt fragile. Sophie's parents tried to mediate, but tensions only grew. Friends and family were drawn into the drama, taking sides and offering unsolicited opinions. What was supposed to be a joyous occasion turned into a battlefield of emotions. The final blow came when Sophie and Mark decided to take a break. The wedding was postponed indefinitely, and soon after, it was officially called off. Sophie was heartbroken. She'd lost not just her partner, but also the dream of the life they'd planned together. And I couldn't shake the guilt. My intentions had been good, but my actions had unintended consequences that I could never take back. In the aftermath, Sophie and I had a long, painful conversation. She told me how much she'd struggled to move on from her past, and how my decision to share it had reopened old wounds. I apologized, genuinely and deeply, but I knew that my apology couldn't undo the damage. Trust had been broken, not just between Sophie and Mark, but between me and Sophie as well. Over time, Sophie and I worked to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't easy, but we both valued the bond we'd shared for so many years. As for Mark, he eventually reached out to Sophie. They had a long conversation about everything that had happened. While they didn't get back together, they found closure, and that brought some measure of peace. This experience taught me the importance of discretion and the weight of my words. What seemed like an innocent conversation had the power to alter lives. I've since learned to think more carefully about the information I share and the impact it might have on others. In the weeks that followed, Sophie made an effort to heal. She poured herself into work and leaned on her close friends for support. Her parents, while upset about the wedding's cancellation, rallied around her. The family gatherings felt different, more subdued, with a lingering tension that hadn't been there before. I noticed how people's conversations became more guarded, as if my mistake had cast a shadow over everyone's interactions. Mark, on the other hand, seemed equally lost. I'd run into him once or twice in town, and each time he looked like someone carrying the weight of a decision he wasn't entirely sure of. He confided in a mutual friend that he still loved Sophie, but felt blindsided by the revelation of her past. It wasn't about Daniel, he'd said, but about the lack of openness. He wondered if there were other things Sophie hadn't told him. Trust, once shattered, is so difficult to rebuild. Months turned into a year, and life slowly moved forward. Sophie began dating again, cautiously. She met someone new, a kind, patient man who seemed to understand her complexities without judgment. Watching her smile again, seeing her confidence return, was a relief. She'd been through so much, and she deserved happiness. As for me, I took a long, hard look at my own actions. I'd always considered myself a good judge of what to say and when to say it, but this experience showed me the power of unintended consequences. I've since learned to hold my tongue, to think deeply about what's mine to share and what isn't. Sophie's forgiveness was a gift, but it's not something I take lightly. Every time I see her, I'm reminded of how fragile relationships can be and how easily trust can be broken. Even now, when our family gathers, there's a quiet understanding among us. The incident has become a part of our shared history, a lesson etched into our collective memory. We've all learned to tread carefully with our words, to approach sensitive topics with care. And while it's a painful chapter, it's also one that brought growth. It reminded us all of the importance of honesty tempered with kindness and the need to protect the ones we love, not just from others, but sometimes from ourselves.